Thanks everyone for joining me, and as we know, we've only got a short period of time, so I can only really scratch the surface. So I'm trying to give you a bit of a framework and to filter all the thousands of interactions and situations you come across when you're in a client-supplier relationship. But I'm sorry, there's no magic here. A client-supplier relationship's really no different to any other relationship in your life. Click. Having trouble moving this forward. Oh, there we go. Whoop. Gosh, knew that would happen. So when I first started to think about this topic and how people work together, my mind went back to these three-legged races we all did when we were kids. You know, we're tied together and we can't get from point A to point B without the help of our partner. And all too many times it ends up like on the right of this picture where there's people falling left, right and centre. But even when it works together, such as these two girls in the middle of this frame here, and people are running on and winning the race, they're actually still going slower than they would on their own. And so really what we need to do when we have a relationship and what we do when we're looking with a supplier is to get faster than we could both on our own, or do more than we could do on our own. That's why I thought of this bicycle built for two business. And as we develop our relationship and we get better and get to know each other, we can actually really start to speed up how we're traveling and move a lot faster than we could have. So successful relationships, and I think the relationship is a metaphor for that bicycle, in that we need to build together. I've written here words like trust, openness, honesty, respect, and understanding. But you know, if you do any Google search, you'll see that there's thousands of people giving advice on just how to make relationships successful. And I mean, one of the ones that you do have to think about is liking. You really need to like the supplier you're dealing with or the person you're going to work with every day, because if not, there's plenty of other suppliers or clients that you could be looking through. And even with the best of relationships, sometimes there's times when you go through stressful periods. We really need to recognise the context. Just like Sue's pointed out in her presentation, the supplier and the clients quite often are looking at things from a different perspective, and so we need to be wary of what's going on in the other party's mind so that we can deal with it. We're not really in a fight. We're not out, and nobody helps from beating up on each other. And we're all subject to environment. With suppliers, clients quite often, well, they don't have the last say in what's going on. We have our own issues to address. Sometimes we're working on 10 different projects, so we don't have the time to focus on a job. And then clients need to think about suppliers. They're subject to financial demands that we're not subject to, so they need to think about, you know, we can't just keep going back to question the same project over and over again, because suppliers need to think of things in a business concept. So putting those into a couple of example situations, such as the briefing process. With the briefing process is when things like respect and these different views comes into play. From a client, you really need to share the full context, and so that a supplier, when they're preparing a brief, understands the whole picture, not just what's written on the words. And from a supplier's perspective, you can't really just look at a document. Recently, I put out a rather large job, and I had 4 suppliers tender back for that job. One of those suppliers came back the next day with a fully written response, or maybe it was a few days later. But what they didn't do is they didn't come and question me about what wasn't in the written document. I mean, you wouldn't really employ somebody just based on their CV, and it's the same with the job. You really should follow up with questions, try and get the whole picture, not just what we could fill in the document. And for suppliers, it's always good when they can present alternatives and bring more than what's asked for. the last job that we've released over at AGL has happened where the suppliers come back and presented not just what we asked for, but a whole range of other things that we didn't ask for. One of the people in my team said to me, well, you know what, should we really give them that job, because they haven't come back on brief. But you know, it's not about being on brief, it's about the two sides of the coin, the supplier and the client, working on getting the best outcome for the business. And so therefore that supplier won that job. The second topic I was going to address here is presenting the results, and one too many again, sorry. And really, I can only really reiterate everything that Sue said in that previous presentation. A lot of those situations that she went through is things that happen or has happened to me. I had one situation with a supplier who was giving us our first presentation, and on the way down in the plane, the supplier decided that he would put a junior person up to present because it would be good training for them. Now, that junior person wasn't able to do a good job because it was their first job. It was in a big room. There was senior people there, and I really did feel silly in that I had high-level execs in the room, and we had a presenter who couldn't present the results. Another issue comes when suppliers present, and they present solely the research, and they don't really think of the commercial aspects of the job. Almost always in our department, when we are a commercial research department, it's not the research that is important, it's the commercial implication that comes out of that research. And so, as Sue said, going through hundreds of pages of data analysis is just puts people to sleep. We really have limited time and limited ability to get hold of senior execs. If they come into the room, we really have to get straight to the point and let them move on to the next job, because always they're thinking about multiple tasks. So, and the worst thing, and I put down here in my own notes, is no surprises. As a client, absolutely, we're at risk every time a researcher is presenting for us, every time I'm presenting research results, so we really don't like surprises. If somebody is coming, even if they're not late, I like to have seen the report so I know exactly what's going to be put up. I'd like to know when they're on their way. So one of the worst things that can happen, you can be in a room with 40 people, maybe a senior exec, and nobody, you're not sure 5 minutes out whether the supplier's on the way, is going to make it, the taxi's late, or caught in the lift. So the sooner I've had contact with the supplier on the day of a presentation, the better I feel. Into further reading, just talked about now, there's a lot of further advice you can get. There was a story last year where the Angry Market Research client got quite a bit of a conversation going around the Twitterverse and through the Green Book blog, talking about the do's and don'ts and things they like and dislike about what suppliers and how clients should act. There's also why I'm not an angry MR client, and people talking about angry MR suppliers that you can just trawl through some of the discussion, which I think is still online. You can find out, and there's articles in magazines such as Research News in Australia or Research World from SMR. There's quite often conversations on the MRX tag in Twitter, and of course through all of the relevant associations and the new MR. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much it. Whoops, away he goes again. So thank you. Thanks for taking the time to spend with us. And as Sue said, if there's any questions, I'm happy to have a chat. Back to you, Sue.